In this video, I will be doing a bit of a behind the scenes tour of my project. It shouldn't be too long. I'll just be going over some of the main mechanics, maybe some issues I faced along the way, and the design. Firstly, while we're here, I'll talk about some of the level design. This is based on the Hockenheimring, which is a famous German race circuit. Obviously, I couldn't get the grandstands in really, or the actual track layout in the sense like the scenery. So I went with more of a natural look, cutting through the valleys, which is somewhat accurate to how it used to look in the 1930s, but it did exist back then. I got a asset online of some chairs and created it into a grandstand, which took quite a bit of time. Mainly just a repeating process. It has made the game file quite big, which I have ran into a couple issues when sending the work home or to college. But overall, it hasn't been too much of an issue. One thing to note is that in the content browser, for the track, you only get this here, the SM track 10 meters. So essentially, what that causes an issue of is that I don't have any turns. So I had to manually edit the straights and transform them into turns, which kind of gives them a bit of a rough edge at times. It hasn't posed too much of an issue with the AI, but I did have issues with the AI bouncing off of the curbs. What I did there is I tried to change the downforce and the weight so that even if they did bounce, it would be minimal. One thing to add is we've had to make several changes to the circuit and the line that the AI take. The AI follow a spline that cuts through the circuit, and I made it follow the racing line so that they're as fast as possible, really. And I had to make several changes because the AI have been known to try and push the boundaries of that spline, meaning that they'll try and go off track and then bash into a wall or etc. One more thing to add is one of the only actual pickup items and stuff that I have is this item here. It's used from majority of the assets come from Unreal Engine for this, and what I did is I used this spark effect here is also in the back of the cars when you activate the ERS, and what this actual pickup does is when you go into it, it gives a bit of I think it's a 35 plus regeneration on your ERS charge. A little bit, that's where a bit of the Mario Blur inspiration comes from. That's kind of what it became. And it also gets to mix in quite well with Formula 1. It is quite interesting how well those two mix. Having the Formula 1 ERS system of saving the battery by slamming the brakes, and then also having a little battery charge pickup, which has made the game a lot more interesting, especially when racing against the AI. Speaking of the AI, we'll show the here real quick. So the AI, they have two cameras. We use the back camera, for the player. These boxes here, what they do is when the player overlaps the boxes, the player, what we did is we calculated the speed and added a multiplier, and so that when they cross over into that box, the player will gain a small speed increase, meaning they have to stay roughly behind the AI. It's not too intense. Like the speed boost, I had to up it a bit so it's a lot more noticeable, because otherwise, I could just say I've got a slipstream mechanic, and I really don't. But so I have had to make it so it's quite intense. One more thing with the box overlaps is this here. This is my win condition. When you cross this, you'll get a little win if you come in first. And I guess now is probably an appropriate time to head into the blueprints. Okay. So we want to head into vehicle template, blueprints, and then vehicle events problem. This is where the majority, the bulk of the. I used to have a lot more AI. That's why we have so many players here. Okay, so let's bring each of these to the side. So, first off, we'll start with the vehicle movement component. So this is the Chaos vehicle. It allows for a realistic physical simulation of the car and the movement. It's very, very. It's hard to navigate at times, but it's also very, very useful. In this, I changed the AI and the players, and I made several different changes to the feeling and the handling to kind of make it appropriate to what I wanted to achieve with this. I also changed the AI so that theirs is faster, because the player will always have a natural advantage because, well, we're just quicker. Just as a person, we're quicker. The AI isn't fast enough, so I've made the AI cars faster, but I've given the player power-ups. So it's more about like the AI will be faster in certain parts of the track, the player will be faster in certain parts of the track. So it's made a bit more of an interesting dynamic there. All of this here is to do with our ERS. It's a bit confusingly named here with stamina boost. Don't worry about that. It's just my other word for ERS boost. So what this does here is when E is activated, we will change the visibility of our sparks, so then it will signify to the player that the nitrous is on. When E is also pressed, E will stand for energy in this case. So we will have a nitrous decrease. This will decrease our nitrous and the bar on the right, which we have. And then this is the big, beautiful chunk of code that I love. What it does is it calculates the speed, and here is our multiplier. But essentially this will multiply our speed by just a fractional amount. I have to change it to make it so low, because if it's anything higher than pretty much this, you will just go flying off the map, because it's just too quick. This is the nitrous increase, so this is the natural gain you will have over time with the nitrous. The ERS, sorry. Where it will slowly tick up over time, but not by much. It's just a slow burner, essentially. I love this. This is one of my favourite bits. It's one of my favourite things to ever work on, is the ERS braking recharge. So when I hold S, it's the same keybind as the brake button. So then, and what it does is when I hold the brake, I gain back a bit of charge in my battery, which I love, and it's realistic to normal Formula One. It's a pretty cheap and easy way of doing it. It doesn't really cause any issues, but it also means that you can brake more into certain corners to try and get a bit more boosts that you can use against the AI on the next straight. This is how much you gain every single power up. So there's a little power up connected to this. Every single time you run into it, it's a little plus 35. You can see that the numbers are quite low. But that's nothing to worry about, really. Here is the slipstream system. Again, it's the same code of the ERS with the calculating speed and then the multiplier. This was important to have. I don't need this anymore. This was important to have. It's much higher than it was with the ERS, but that is purely so that I can keep it so it's a lot more. It's a lot more dramatic. It has to be shown on camera properly, otherwise people won't really know it's there. With the boost, it's a bit easier because there's a visual to it. With the slipstream, there isn't. This is my get current speed. This is my get front of car. Okay, yes. We have the box behind the car for the slipstream. What else do we have here? That's my widget for the bar. We also have what's it called? We also have a camera which will lean back. So when we press on the accelerator, we get a bit of a lean back with the camera. It's a pretty nice effect. It should be this one, I think. Yeah, that camera. It will essentially move back and zoom out as we accelerate, which is a pretty handy feature. It's been quite cool for me. each one of these all have the same blueprint. It's all copied off of the vehicle advanced pawn, but these will have different vehicle movement component settings to make them go faster. This is the asset for the stamina boost right there. This is the finish line. You'll see there's a bit of a mess with the levels. There's a good reason for that. I need each level so that I can transport in between menus. So these will have like the tips, these will be the time modes, the multiplayer modes. These will have my menus. Although there's a bit of organization to the chaos. It's relatively organized despite not looking it, and it's enough for me to work with. This is my AI, so this will have a lot of my AI's intelligence. So this will tell it. This is what it actually says here. So what it will stick to the spline, get close to the spline here, and then what it will do is it will try and this will essentially calculate the maximum minimum speed it should go throughout certain sections. So it's 285 and 85. If I raise it any higher, they will start going off the track in the slow sections. And what this does here, this kind of makes the eyes for the AI. So this is the range that they see in front on the spline. So if the spline is a rapid turn, it will tell them I need to slow down quickly, essentially. But if I had that at 1, then the AI would just go flying off the track without realizing that there's a turn there. It would essentially make them blind. It's pretty much the same for majority of these, with slight alterations in the code so that it's more about steering and top speeding and calculating the throttle. It's all a little bit different. And then this sums it all together. This brings back all the custom events and functions, and wraps it all into one nice, neat bow. For the most part, we are getting towards the end of this, to be fair. It could probably be quite useful to look into some of the UI. So the vehicle UI in here. This just gets the percentage, so you can see a little visual of how much you have left. And so this little image, little menu, it's the same for every single one, and what it does is it loads up a new level every time the button is clicked. And this here, I had a bit of issue with these. I couldn't click in and out of game modes, so that became a bit of an issue for me. So I had to find a way around that, and this was my solution, essentially. That is the majority of the project. I did a bit of landscaping with this. There's I have quite a couple mechanics, but there's not too much. There's not too much to it. One thing I did miss: stamina boost. So this is a little stamina boost here. Sorry, it's not stamina boost. Nitrous boost. I'm sorry to call it stamina boost because it works. It works the same as a stamina boost would. We've got quite a bit of mess here to clean up. What this does is on component begin overlap, it activates tests true or false, and then what it does is it targets the vehicle advanced pawn, it destroys the actor, and it casts to the vehicle advanced pawn on event begin play, and then that gets called later on, and then adds a 35 which I showed earlier. I think overall, we'll do one last check through to see if I've missed anything. Oh, I do know what we've missed, and it's a bit of a pain to find because there we go, physics materials. So these two here, very important. I don't know if I mentioned this enough, but if I go here and then drag this bad boy out here, so this is my little chunk of landscape here. My landscape, it should be down here, the material, or somewhere. Oh, this is wall terms, my bad. So this is the material. And what I've essentially done is added a physical material override. There you go, yeah, here. So physical material override, so then when I get onto the grass, the car will handle much differently. it'll be less. There'll be less friction, and it'll essentially be harder to control. It won't be harder to control in the traction control way where you'll go spinning, but it means you'll have less acceleration. You can look at the friction here. There'll be less acceleration than there would normally be. But then with the track surface, I've edited it so 1.5, so you can brake really late now. But it also means that if you get pushed off track or if you move off track, you're kind of screwed because you'll struggle to slow down. So, and it also is a good way of preventing players from cutting corners because it means in the end you won't really gain much. And that's also the reason why I added in the landscaping, because we were always taught that we need natural ways of preventing players from cheating. And you can't just place up invisible walls. And I didn't want to place walls all the way around the circuit, so I believe the very natural and quite a beautiful way of doing it would, and something that I do quite enjoy, is landscaping. And you'll see that any kind of advantage that you can gain here, it usually chucks you onto a small hill. It's not too dramatic in a lot of areas, but like especially in areas like here where you really you could probably cut about 10 seconds of track. I mean, a lot of them I leave it. It's mainly just so that you can't cut across the whole track, but like they'll leave a bit of area here so it doesn't punish you too harshly. Because if you cut across it a little bit and then you got flipped, that'd be a pain. So I just lowered the friction so that when you do, you won't gain anything, but you won't exactly be punished for it. I think that brings the end to my behind the scenes of this project. It's been very fun to work on. I think a lot of the issues I faced were quite difficult but solvable in the end, and I've quite enjoyed working on it. Yeah, thank you.